Hello and welcome back to Angular 2 Masterclass with Alejandro Rangel. In this section, we are going to talk about the configuration and bootstrapping process of Angular 2. This is one of the most important videos to continue to the next sessions because we will rely on this configuration and bootstrapping in every example that we are going to do. For simplicity, we will do this configuration once to practice, and then we will start using Plonker, and Plonker has already pre-configured this for you. But once you start working on your own project in your local machine, you should do these steps every time that you want to create a new project. So it's very important that you understand which are the steps in order to start working with Angular 2. So the first thing that we should know is about the package.json. This is a configuration file where we tell npm node package manager which are the dependencies of our project. So in our case, we need to tell to the npm which are the libraries that Angular needs to load. Also, we specify in the package.json the dependencies that we need for development. Like it could be Karma, Jasmine, TypeScript, and so on. This is how it looks at typical package.json. This is taken from the weather application that we will do in the next sections. And as we can see here, there are many properties that we have to configure. So let's take a look in detail. The first part of the package.json specifies the name of our application, as it could be here, the weather app, and then the version. This is just the number of the version of our application. We can start increasing this 1.0.01 and so on every time that we have a new release. The next part are the scripts that we can run with the npm. In this case, we have TSC. This is for transpile our TypeScript files. We have the TSC watcher. This is running TypeScript in watch mode. So every time that we configure or change one TypeScript file, then it will recompile again all our files or the files that record the changes. Then we have the light. If we run this command, we will open a static file server so we can serve Angular 2 pages. About the dependencies that we specify in the package.json, obviously we need to specify the Angular 2. In this case, when I started to do these video tutorials, it was a beta 0. So far in 1 week, we are in beta 7. And probably when you start coding, it's going to be beta or hopefully the final release. We have to specify also the system.js. This is a universal dynamic module loader. This is a JavaScript library that we will use to load our Angular from scratch. And then we have several libraries that Angular needs to run. So these are dependencies required by Angular 2. The next part in the configuration phase of Angular before starting a project is the tsconfig file, .json file. This file is also taken from the weather app that we will build later on. And this file basically is for specifying how TypeScript should transform and transpile our TS files to JavaScript. The most important property that we have to configure is the final result of the transpiling, which is the language that we want to have. So as our browsers right now only knows about ES5, we should specify ES5 until browsers fully support ES6. There are other types of configurations like decorators, comments, and so on. So let's take a look on the tsconfig.json. So it should look like this. As you can see, the first property that we have to configure is the target. We are telling here that it should transpile to ES5. This one is super important. We have to tell TypeScript that we want to generate the source map. So we put this property to true. Why? Because this property will allow us to link in the browser the TypeScript original file to the JavaScript. So instead of debugging in the transpile file, you should debug in the original source file, that is a TypeScript. Once we specify the tsconfig, the next step should be to create a main.ts, and this is where we will tell Angular how it should be load our application. We can think about it as an entry point of our Angular app, or the main, the typical main from other language. So we should specify in this configuration file that we are going to run Angular in the browser. This is super important because Angular 2 could run also in the server or in mobile. So for these examples, we will be running Angular in the browser. In the future, it depends on your project. And also we have to specify the array of external dependencies of our application, as it could be the HTTP library or the route library that we will talk about it later on. So what is the bootstrapping process anyway? It's exactly what I explained. Yeah. So let's do a practical example of this and let's put it in practice. So let's create a folder. Let's call it Angular to setup. Okay. The first thing that we need to do is to navigate to this folder, and I'm going to use Sublime Text to create in the desktop Angular setup the package.json. And also I want to create a new file that is going to be the tsconfig.json. Okay, good. So yeah, so we have these two folders, and I highly suggest that we go to the Angular 2 page. From there we go to the 5 min quick start, and we can copy and paste the TypeScript configuration from here. Let's open the TypeScript. So we paste this in our TypeScript configuration. We check that the target is ES5. We can open also the Sublime Text. We go down, and from the quick start, you copy the package.json. We paste it here, and after that, we are ready to start creating more stuff for our application. So let's go here and create a folder app. And inside the folder app, we want to create the main.ts. Oh, sorry, I did a mistake here. So we want to create the main.ts inside. Okay. Oh, I'm a little bit tired actually. Okay, so Sublime Text is not supported here. So let's open here. Sublime Text, yes. So we open the main.ts, and from here also, let's search for main.ts. Yes, exactly. This is what we need to copy and paste here. So what we are saying is we need from Angular 2, from the browser, from the platform library, the browser configuration, we get the browser, and we need to pass which is the application that we want to bootstrap. Okay. In our case, we don't have yet an app component. This is going to be the next part of our application. But once we create an app component, this is the component that we need to start. So this is our main. In the next videos, we will see how this will be connected to the entire application. So don't worry, just focus on understanding that we need to create a package.json, the tsconfig, and from there we can start coding here. The last step to have everything ready for start coding should be to execute here the sudo npm install And this will download all the dependencies that Angular 2 needs in order to run, and it will put it in a node modules folder. So let's wait a little bit until this finish. Okay, while this is finishing, let's create the app component. So we come here, let's create app.component.ts. Okay, and don't worry about this part because we will be talking about all these details later on. So I'm going to write just the main component for our application. Okay, so app component, and yes. So it's important that if this is our main app component, here we are exporting this class, it should match with, it should match with what we are importing here. So we are importing app component and bootstrapping this. Just a trick, because we are using TypeScript, we should specify here that we are bootstrapping an app component and it's of type any. Okay, so now everything it's installed, so it downloads all these dependencies for Angular. So let's check how does this looks. Here in the node modules we have all the dependencies for our product, and the last step actually to run the application is to create the index. I highly suggest that you copy the index because it is going to be always the same in our applications from the Angular 2. So we come here and we need to create one more file that is going to be the index. It should be in Angular setup, index.html. We paste all this code. Okay, important, here we have all the dependencies for Angular, and this is what I was explaining about the system.js with the configuration. Don't worry so much about this right now because I will explain this in detail in several sections later on. Here we have the selector of our app component. Again, I will explain this later, but anyway, if you are interested, this should match the selector in the app component. We save this file and we can execute from our script npm start. This will transpile all our JavaScript files and then it will run the server. As you can see here, it's printed the hello world that comes from our app component, and we have the main.ts, the main.js. This is the transpile files from our original source code. So hopefully this will make sense in the next videos to you, and you will be able to write this faster. Also, Angular will provide soon the Angular command line interface that will speed up all this process. So see you in the next video.